This case is about the Stanford cold case murders. There was a fourth one, and DNA will be solving 3 of them in this series. As we know, DNA testing is getting very popular in the law enforcement in solving cold cases, which could not be solved back then as technology was not advanced, but they were hoping in years to come that technology would be advanced enough for them to test their samples. And that is the case today, where DNA is being used to solve very, very old cold cases. So there are 3 Stanford cold case murders that were solved, that the detectives have solved. It just was not one person, it was several people. I don't know if they were copycats or they just had a bunch of murderers that live in and work in on the premises of Stanford University. One guy that killed Arliss Perry, a 19-year-old, was murdered inside Stanford Memorial Church. And though in that case authorities said the DNA was used to confirm a long-time suspect as the killer, and this man was a former security guard, Stephen Crawford. And this man took the coward's way out and took his own life as authorities closed in on him. So when they came a knocking on his door with a search warrant, he killed himself because he knew they were catching up with him. So it was never legally he wasn't legally convicted of the crime in the court, but he was legally the killer by DNA. So let's hope that her family have some peace of mind knowing that their loved one's murder has been solved by DNA and they can rest. It was well after midnight when David Levine, he was a junior at Stanford, and he had left his job in the physics lab and walked home alone across mostly deserted campus early in the morning of September the 11th, 1973. Nearly 46 years later, Levine's killer is the lone enduring mystery in a string of 4 brutal murders of young people on and around the Stanford campus in 1973 and 1974. And these cases went unsolved for decades until DNA evidence recently allowed investigators to identify suspects in 3 of these murders. But David's Levine's murder remains unsolved at this time, but they're getting close. But the other 3 murders have been solved since a cold case team reopened this back in 2016. Like I said, they have one in custody, but like I said, when they went to hand in the warrant, knock on this guy's door, he shot himself because he knew, and he was watching this case, I guess, and heard reports, so he knew when they came a knocking on his door, he had his gun ready to take his own life, and that's what he did. So good riddance to him, but what a shame they couldn't take him before he did that. But he's gone, and he is the killer, which DNA proved him to be so. Evidence, has been reviewed in the past, and they never gave up. They were just waiting for technology and for cold case detectives to go through these cases. There's so many, and they're trying to work their way through them as I speak. This guy, David, was supposed to be a very brilliant scientist. He was given this lab job because they apparently saw that he, even though he was only a junior, he had the brains of somebody that has graduated already. So based on his willingness, his ethics, his brilliant brain, that they gave him the job. Now, at the time he was killed, everybody had gone home on vacation. But the reason why he was there is because he was working in the lab. Otherwise, he would not have been on campus that morning. So fate got the best of him. The DNA they have on him has not had a hit at this time. It's not to say they're not going to, but it looks like it's somebody different that killed him. And they say it was a black man this time, or somebody sees something and saw a black man around that time. But the other cases, the 3 other cases, they were white men, 2 white men. And of course, we know just because you work somewhere, back in them days, they hired you but didn't check your history. Are you a felon? What kind of person are you? They didn't do it back then. But of course, they do it now But just because you haven't been in trouble doesn't mean that you are not a bad guy. You know, there's many people out there that turn out to be murderers. So even though you have security, you still need to take precaution. Uh, don't believe everyone and everything you see. Don't be too trusting. Never let your guard down, because anybody you're working with who works where you go to school doesn't mean they've been checked out and they're good people. And that goes for any job. So you really have to look at your surroundings. And when you're driving, make sure nobody's following you. You really got to take care of yourself. And don't go alone, go in numbers. That's the only advice anybody can give anybody. So they had solved 3 cases in the Stanford cold case murders at the campus. And let's hope that the 4th murder will be solved very soon. And those are the pictures of the 2 suspects. Mind you, are not found guilty in the court of law yet, and one of them will never be, but his DNA is a match. So that is enough to stop looking for another suspect in this case. So guys, thank you for stopping by, and there is more cold cases in this series coming up in the future. So stay tuned, guys. Stay tuned, and leave your comments below. And let's have a discussion. And what do you think about DNA, the journey to justice?